Well, hello class and welcome to 10 minutes of HSIE Gold Assessment Preparation with Mr. Burns. Ding! Right, there's just a little special effect for you. Alright, and moving on to gold. Alright team, here's a picture showing Australia's population growth between 1851 to 1854. Why on earth do you think this happened? Have a think. Okay, it happened because of the gold rush, guys. Gold was found in Victoria and New South Wales. More was found in Victoria, so people from all over the world came to Australia to hunt for gold. Very sorry, please forgive my croaky voice. All right, the next picture shows Ballarat, how developed it is, the shiny brand new buildings. Why? Why do you think it suddenly has got new buildings? Look, it's the 1860s Ballarat. It's just out of Melbourne there in Victoria. Why is Ballarat so new and shiny? What do you think? Okay, here's your reasons. One, it's got brand new large buildings because, well, number two, Ballarat increased its wealth. Why did it increase its wealth? Well, of course, people were finding gold, turning that into money and spending that in Ballarat as such. And of course, you had the population increase in Ballarat as well because everyone's going to the gold fields and the gold fields are next to Ballarat. So lots more people are living in Ballarat, lots more richer people. So, of course, more new shiny buildings. Okay guys, here you have a picture of a train line that's been built, and why do you think train lines suddenly sprung up across Australia, particularly between New South Wales and Victoria? Turn your brains on, have a bit of a think. Well, for a starters, number one, they're a massive improvement on carts and horses and wagons. Number two, well, you've got a bigger population in Australia, so you need to move more people. You're not just moving 5 families or 10 convicts anymore. You're moving wealthy people and more of them. And of course, number three is Australia could afford the trains. It didn't have that much money before. It couldn't actually buy trains, buy the equipment to make trains. But now it's much richer, so it could afford the trains. Now, another aspect we're looking at with the goldfields is immigration, and of course we had increased immigration, and the question is, and I hope you know why we had increased immigration, because the goldfields, obviously, lots of people came over from other countries. What good things occurred as a result of this immigration? Have a bit of a think about it. I'm about to remind you. Right, well, the first most obvious benefit to the diggers, at least, was there was different, healthier food on the goldfields. Instead of just tea and mutton, which is old sheep, they had Chinese vegetables and chicken cooked in exotic and exciting spices. Okay, basically you had more shops selling different things, and we have that today because of immigration. Okay, look, some of the things we've got are different types of worldly art, different instruments, different sorts of religions, different types of plant life, different sports. Okay, we've got different fashion. The immigrants have brought new skills into Australia, starting off with different ways of mining for gold, and of course that extends to new skills across all sorts of fields in science and in medicine. I mean, just an example is of course Chinese medicine that we have in this country now. Things like acupuncture and types of massage. Lots of different benefits, lots of different skills brought into Australia and products brought into Australia by immigration. And of course, really, the third thing to mention is money. When people come into Australia, often they bring their money with them, and it makes Australia a wealthier place. And that, of course, happened in the gold rush as well. Alright, but as we know, it wasn't all peaches and cream. It wasn't all nice and lovely at the gold rush. There was many riots, and one particular riot was the riot at Lambin Flat, and I wonder if you remember what caused this, what this was all about. The picture should remind you. Have a look, see if you can turn your brain on. Okay, basically this picture shows the Europeans fighting with the Chinese And the Europeans, that's Australians, Italians, and Americans, and Irish and English, they were basically jealous of the Chinese diggers, as the Chinese were often finding more gold, even in places that the European diggers had left behind, had already had a look in. Okay, now this is probably very likely because the Europeans were racist towards the Chinese. The Europeans didn't seem to have a problem with other white people finding gold and doing well on the gold fields, but they had a particular problem with people who looked different to them, like the Chinese succeeding on the gold field. And of course, the Chinese did look different. They've got different sorts of skin, their faces look different, they had different routines, they ate different foods, they wore different clothes, and all of this contributed to a sense of real difference between the Chinese and the Europeans. And quite very likely the Europeans can be considered as racist towards the Chinese, simply not liking them because of what they looked like and their particular race, their skin colour as such. Okay, so many Chinese were murdered and attacked on the gold fields. Okay, certainly a mixture of racism and jealousy occurring on the gold fields there towards the Chinese from the European diggers. Well, here's a picture of Bakery Hill and a stockade on Bakery Hill, and I wonder if you can, if you remember what the name of that stockade is. It's a very important stockade in Australia's history. Have a think. Why is it important? Have a think in your head now. Pause me if you like. Okay, team, it's the Eureka Stockade. What was it? A stockade built by the diggers on Bakery Hill above the Eureka Strike, which is the name of that certain goldfield. And I'll just move this, sorry. Right. And why did the diggers build this? Well, the diggers thought that it was unfair to pay such high, and I believe we have to go over the page here, such high license fees. You see, of course, the diggers had to pay a license fee for the right to mine, to dig for gold, and the license fees were very high, and often the diggers didn't find gold. So it's a bit rough paying for a license fee when you're not even finding gold. So, and they had no money anyway. So the diggers actually decided to make a stand against the government troops as such. Okay, and another reason was why they built this Eureka Stockade was the diggers were generally very unhappy with the brutal way in which the license fee was collected. So sometimes diggers hadn't paid the license fee, and the troopers, the Joes, would ride around on the horse and chase the diggers. Chase the diggers who hadn't paid the fees and hunt them down and beat them as such and force them to give up money. And it was very rough, it was very brutal, and the diggers were very unhappy with that. All right, we've also got the social impact of the Eureka Stockade, and of course we've talked about this, but just a very quick reminder, the government troops more or less stormed the little stockade the diggers built and killed many of the diggers, about 10 or so of the diggers, and no government troops died. It was pretty ugly, but the social impact was people around Australia, New South Wales and Victoria particularly, were inspired. They felt that they should also demand better pay or conditions from their employers or government. Generally, public sympathy was on the side of the diggers. People believed the diggers should have stood up for their rights, and they did the right thing, even though they lost the battle. And so people all around Australia, basically from that time on, started to demand better and fairer pay and conditions from their employers or government. And that's often why you see those 5 stars, that flag of the Southern Cross on lots of people's utes or their cars or wherever around Cronulla. It's a symbol of a bit of a fight back against the against employers or the government as such. Okay, here we have Aboriginals and the gold rush and how they were affected. Have a think about it. There's an Aboriginal stockman there. Why? Have a think about it. Why is he there? You didn't see many of those before the gold rush. Okay, the Aboriginal stockman. Well, White workers, European workers, okay, that's another word for white if you will, left their jobs to go to the goldfields, and they created opportunities for Aboriginals to get jobs. So most farm hands were just European, white farm hands, and they left to go to the goldfields. They joined the gold rush, so there was suddenly opportunities for Aboriginals or Indigenous Australians to get employment at these farms. So you got more Aboriginal stockmen then. Another issue with regard to Aboriginals in the gold rush, well, it's just down the bottom there. You can see that Aboriginals were displaced, and Aboriginals were moved off their land by diggers who wanted to dig for gold in that area. Okay, so diggers wanted to dig for gold in a certain area that Aboriginals were living on. The diggers would come along and move the Aboriginals, and the Aboriginals weren't happy about it, but generally they would move. Some even went to work as stockmen. Okay, have a look at that picture. You can see Australia breaking free from the chains of British control. Why? How did the gold rush affect this? How did the gold rush inspire this breaking free? Right, the first main reason is wealth. Australia no longer needed money from Britain. It had its own from the gold rush. Britain didn't need to pay to support Australia anymore. Second reason was population increase. Britain stopped sending convicts over. There was no need. We had plenty of immigration happening by itself without Britain having to supply bodies to fill up Australia. Third reason is the government. Well, Australia was able to vote for its own government. We weren't just under the Queen's authority as such so much anymore. Because of the Eureka Stockade, people wanted their own government. They wanted fair treatment. We were no longer under the Queen's complete authority. We started to vote for ourselves, and we became what is called a democratic society. So Britain had even less control over us in that sense. Remember, the Queen is in a sense officially in charge of Australia. She can change the Prime Minister, but that is a limited power, and it can only occur in special situations. We have much more control over ourselves as a nation now than we did before. Okay, for those of you who are extra interested, you might want to go to the Year 5 homepage and click on the HSI link up the top here, with regards to the Australian Gold Rush. There it is. And all of those links there will give us extra information, and you will be asked questions about those topics. And if you can describe them or go into them in some detail, you'll be looking at getting A's in business like that. We've talked about them. There's nothing new there, but you might want to have a look at those to remind yourself, for those of you who are super keen. All right, guys, that's it. I've gone 2 minutes over time. See you later.